So your SAT test is this weekend and you haven't really had time to prepare. What are you going to do? Well, you're in the right place, not to worry guys. I'm gonna give you 5 expert last minute tips to help boost your SAT score without much studying. Now, if you're planning on taking more than one SAT this year, I would definitely recommend you hit the subscribe button and notification bell below right now. Statistics show that students who subscribe to my channel score 57.567 points higher than students who do not. Seriously, that is accurate. Now, please comment below and type the word cram if you just started studying this week. Seriously though, you guys are giving me an aneurysm. And on the flip side, if you're one of the responsible students watching this video, go ahead and comment below how many hours on estimation you think you put into studying for this next test. All right, guys, so tip number 1, sometimes you're gonna have a very abstract math problem with lots of variables in it, and it could be very confusing. So I would say use the strategy nice numbers when you're in those situations. How does it work? Well, instead of working with X's and A's, I'm just gonna set a number for X and make it concrete. I don't wanna pick 0 or 1 because they do funky things. The next best one to use would be 2 in this case. So I would have 2 squared plus 2 over 2 plus 5. That equals 6/7. Okay. They want an equivalent expression to that. And they said it could be rewritten as a plus 20 over x plus 5. I'm still going to use 2 for x. So I'll start by putting in x minus 4 in for a. And I want to see if that gets me 6/7. So when I put in 2 for x, I have 2 minus 4 plus 20 over 2 plus 5. That's a negative 2 plus 20 over 7, which is a negative 14/7 plus 20/7. And there we go. We've got 6/7 on the first try. So a much easier approach. It's like I can understand when I put numbers to it what everything means. When it's abstract with x's, I can't visualize what they mean. So use nice numbers if you're in a pinch. All right, the next tip I have for you deals with geometry problems if they're drawn to scale. If they're drawn to scale, they won't say under the picture, figure not drawn to scale. Like right here is where they would say that. Otherwise, you're golden. So in this particular problem that showed up on a recent SAT, they said AC is a diameter with center O, AC is 10. Okay, if AC is 10, that means this is 5 and that is 5. They said triangle ACB is equilateral. The length of BP is n times the length of AO. What is the value of n? Okay, BP. When I look at that, like I'm literally just eyeballing it right now. And if I cut like this 5-unit segment in half, I know each one of those is 2.5. This looks like it's about 2.5 to me. Do you guys see that? Like I'm just eyeballing it, maybe a little bit more than 2.5. So when I look at all the answer choices, okay, I want BP basically is half the length of AO because it looks like it's about half. I mean, you could take your bubble sheet and measure it if you need to, but like we can kind of tell it's about half. So we want n to be about 1/2, okay? When I look at the answer choices, I have to use some logical reasoning, or I could pull out a calculator. Either way is fine. I know radical 4 equals 2. So radical 5 is going to be bigger than 2. I want 1/2. That's out. Radical 3 is going to get me 1 point something. It's irrational. That's still bigger than 1/2 too. I don't want that. Now, radical 5, again, it's bigger than 2, so I'm going to have 2 minus 1, a number bigger than 2, just bear with me. So it's going to be greater than 1, and I want 1/2, so D is out. The only one that could get me about 1/2 is C, radical 3 minus 1, and that was the answer to this. So just measure things. You don't need to do much math. Look at the picture and use common sense, and a lot of times it'll get you very, very far. And of course, this video is brought to you by Preply, the digital SAT prep app that's available in the App Store and in Google Play. If you're a student on the go, which I know most of you guys are, you play sports, you have extracurriculars, you're like busy from sun up to sundown, Preply is the perfect SAT preparation app for you. You can prep on the go, practice a handful of questions at a time, all at your fingertips on your mobile device. So if you can't be tied down to a computer on Blue Book exams, practicing a full test every time you want to do a little digital SAT prep, make sure you download that Preply app today. So I'm going to put a link up here and a link down in the description below. See what all these other users are raving about. We're helping people all over the world boost their scores with a fun way to prep. Okay, tip number 3, I would say don't reinvent the wheel. So what I mean by this is whatever representation College Board gives you, whether it's tabular, graphical, or algebraic, use that one. Don't reinvent the wheel. So for instance, if I'm looking at this table and I'm trying to figure out slope, I'm not going to write, oh, y equals x2 minus x1 over y2 minus y1, and then try to take those numbers and put them into those spots. 1, it's easier to make a careless mistake. 2, it takes longer. So all you need to do is just know slope is rise over run. So I'm going to start with the y values. What's my rise if I go from 13 to 9? Oh, okay, it's -4. That goes on top. And then what's my run if I go from 0 to 10 on the x? Oh, it's a +10. That goes on the bottom. Then I'm just going to reduce it. So it looks like the slope is -2/5. So I'm going to go with D. Easy peasy. Just use the table, count up and over, rise over run. You're done. Same with a graph. So if they give you a line on a graph, just count up and over to the next point. You don't need to use the slope equation. All right, tip number 4 is to play majority rules. So when you're gonna do this is if you're completely stuck on a math problem and you don't know what to do. You can guess strategically. So for instance, I'm showing you guys this number 13, which was also from a recent SAT test. When I look at the answer choices, let's say I have no clue how to solve this problem. I'm gonna get rid of answer choice B first because there's no radical in it. So it's such an oddball, like the other 3 have square roots. I'm gonna get rid of C next because there's no fraction with it. The other 3 have fractions to them. So at least now I have it down to a 50-50. And honestly, I noticed that this one has a square root over the entire thing, where this one doesn't, but this one does. So I would probably go with A. And A was the right answer. So a lot of the times you can guess your way to the correct answer just using that strategy. All right, guys, if you're finding this video helpful so far, show me some love, hit the thumbs up button below, and let's get to the next tip. All right, my last tip is dealing with execution for English. So if you're taking the digital SAT, I would recommend you skip to number 15 and start there on the English modules. Number 15 and beyond is your standard English convention questions, so all your grammar questions, then your expression of ideas, so your transitions and your note-taking questions. And then when you get to the end, you're gonna hit the review button, hit number 1 and go back to the beginning and start with the words and context questions. Why is that the best approach? Well, that allows you to answer the easier questions first that are also quicker with time. So it will help with your pacing, it will help with your success rate, and then you can save the more cumbersome, challenging, intensive reading questions for last, like the logically completes the text and the supports or undermines a claim. Now, if you're taking the paper test, which is the last paper test ever, so you guys, you are a very important group in SAT's history, here's what I would recommend. The English sections, or the reading section this time, is I think going to be a historical hug slug. Last test November was science, October was historical, although people didn't think it was labeled a historical. So this December is going to be a historical. Now, what I would suggest is just taking that hug slug, which is the 2 passages back to back, and saving it for last. The hug slug is harder, it takes longer to do, so just skip it, go to the other passages, finish everything out, come back to the hug slug last. If you run out of time, you can Christmas tree the last however many questions you have from the hug slug, which is ideal because the last 4 questions of the hug slug are comparative questions and student success rate is way lower on those. So just go D, 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 and you're sure to pick up a couple points if you run out of time anyways. All right, guys, I hope you make full use of these tips on your next test. I wish you the best of luck on your studying, and until next time, happy prepping.